Hey guys, welcome to Transitions with Dr. Tam, where apparently we talk to ourselves for 10 minutes by ourselves. Oh my gosh. Guys, I'm not even kidding. I have been sitting in this chair for about 10 minutes at this point. Let me tell you, not one button was pressed. I'm not recording anything, either audio or video. So basically, I had to start all over. So yeah, we enjoy talking to everyone and no one at the same time. But anywho, I am excited about this month in particular. This month, we're going to focus on This Time Feels Different. That's the theme for the month. And it's not going to just be me for the next couple of episodes either. I'm going to invite my friends, meaning I have forced the people that I revere to talk to you all about their journeys as well. I have some very interesting friends who are so wise and so fun and so funny. And I just feel like it's a perfect opportunity for you guys to meet the people in my world. So I'm very excited about This Time Feels Different. So let's start with me. This podcast feels different. And I'll tell you why. Several years ago, I had a blog, and I mentioned it briefly in the intro for this podcast. And the purpose of that blog was really just to let out my thoughts and feelings. I had gotten remarried. And when that marriage didn't work because it ended so quickly after its inception, a lot of embarrassment and a lot of just, I don't want to relive my story. I don't want to retell my story. So it was so much easier for me to just send people to a website where you can go and read all of the drama for yourself. And I really didn't think that it would become a thing at all. It was honestly just a place where I could house all of my wedding photos and let you all know what happened. So that way, if there is a conversation that needs to be had, I'm not having to start from scratch. What happened? And then I got to start with, well, it all began in November of 1981, So that was the blog. And the blog did exist for some time. I enjoy writing, but honestly, I just didn't feel the need to keep up with writing something every week or finding a reason to write every week. There were times where I just didn't have anything to say. And this was, when blogging was a huge deal. And I just didn't feel like I had enough in me for blogging all the time. Another thing is that I was really, really busy teaching second grade. So the last thing you want to do when you are dealing with curriculum and students, a lot of the things that I could share with you would be confidential information. Like the last thing I want to do is write a blog story on how silly Johnny is and what I had to tell his mama during our parent conference. So no, that ended, after some time. Now, what I can say is that I've always been in the audio or visual space. There was a time during the pandemic when I just so happened to be on Clubhouse listening to some comedy shows. And one of the comedy shows kind of shifted to where I was just giving advice to people. And it ended up becoming Therapy Thursday, me and some other co-hosts who to this day I absolutely adore. And so that became a thing. And just in the course of my day, I run into coworkers who might just need advice about things. And so I have heard repeatedly from some people, yo, Tam, you should really start a podcast. Even though in my head, people are appreciating whatever insight I have to offer, for me, it was just a 5-minute conversation. I'm not sure if a podcast would actually be sustainable because I'm not giving you a 30-minute episode when we're just discussing whatever the issue may be. I'm helping you navigate. And the other thing is that sometimes insight seems longer when you are in real-time conversations because there is that back and forth. So it's not me holding the floor for 30 minutes. It's you asking, it's me answering, it's you adding more information. And so there's also the pause for laughter because, insert joke somewhere. The interesting thing is in the podcast space, you are literally listening to my voice. And I didn't always like my voice. So a podcast was the furthest thing from my mind for a long time. And this all started because of something that was said to me in second grade. So let's talk about childhood trauma. And I didn't realize how much it impacted me, but it did. So in second grade, I was living in Savannah, Georgia. We were all in the lunch line. And in this particular school, we line up alphabetically. Well, a classmate of mine whose last name was Williams was standing in front of me, but she wasn't really paying attention in the line. It was like, the people who are at the red light, but they're on their phone. So you got to honk your horn to get them to go because now the light is green. That was her, except on her feet. So one day what I did is I skipped in front of her because I was like, I am tired of little girl Williams just taking so much time. When I got up to the line, the cafeteria lady told me, you have to get behind her because your last name is Wilson. She's got to go first. So the next time we're in line, I remembered that I can't skip in front of her. The lunch lady is going to put a stop to that. So what I did is I tapped her on the shoulder and I said, you have to turn around because the line is moving forward. Well, guess what? A young boy behind me said, "Oh, your voice is deep. You sound like a man." And from that day on, I would hide my voice. And I didn't just hate everything about my voice. I can carry a tune, but I didn't really like talking a lot at points of my life because I remembered what that boy said. So what I would do literally is try to raise the pitch a little bit. This is what I did, honestly, on my answering machine, my freshman year in college. "Hi, this is Tamika. I'm so sorry I can't come to the phone right now. Leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as possible." Y'all, that is not how I sound. That is not how I sound. But of course, when you leave a message and then you have to play it back to review it, I felt like my voice was too deep. So I would do things on purpose to not sound like I had such a deep voice. So imagine someone with this going on in the back of your head saying, "Oh my gosh, you should totally be on a TV show. You should do a talk show someday." Okay, I'm cool with a talk show because you're kind of distracted by the visual, so maybe you're not listening to the audio as much, but there's no way in the world I would ever just be in a space where you have to hear me. To this day, I don't necessarily enjoy talking on the phone because just like anybody else, if it's too early, if it's too late, if I'm too tired, my voice is going to drop. And then now I'm sounding like a man again. Also, I'm an introvert, so I just don't be on the phone like that all day. There was a lady in school who I just happened to be talking to. She was not my teacher or anything of that sort, but she was an adult who worked in the school. And she says, "You have a radio voice." And when she said that, I was like, okay, thanks. And I never really thought anything of it because I'm not going to college for radio and television. So thank you for the compliment, but so I did kind of carry that with me a little bit as well. She was the first person to really start chipping away at that mindset that I have, at the mind shift that I needed. But again, I felt like it was easier to have conversations with people in person because expressions and body language and the smiles, it would distract you from what I sound like. But yeah, freshman year in college, I definitely left a voicemail on my phone that was higher than my natural speaking tone. And the guy that I was dating at the time called me out on it. I didn't think that anybody would recognize that. This was before a cell phone, so I didn't have a cell phone where I was doing this, but he called me out. He was like, "Yeah, that's not what you sound like in real life. Like, why did you do that?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Yeah, you're like, 'Hi, this is Tamika.'" And I was like, "I do not sound like that." He says, "No, you do." And I realized in that moment, I'm just going to have to be me because any efforts to not be, that's not appreciated either. So I would rather be criticized for being my authentic self than be criticized for being what I think other people want. And it's not even natural to me in the first place. So here we are. We are here. And it's so interesting that having overcome that stigma that my voice was too deep to then being introduced to people like Lauryn Hill with these deeper registries, watching Toni Braxton win things when she has a deeper voice. Like when I tell you these people set me free, because I was finally able to hear altos and tenors and women with lower registries be affirmed and appreciated. Fast forward, I'm teaching second grade, and one of the parents in my class told me that my voice was soothing. What? So we don't went from this second grade boy who was clowning me because my voice sounded so deep to people telling me that my voice is soothing. And I really appreciate that journey. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I would be nervous if I was. But for the people who really took the time to pour into me, they really just don't know to what extent that was a positive change and shift for me. So let me pause right there and just encourage you. If you are thinking something about someone that would actually lift them and build them, don't be hesitant in telling them. You never know what door you are unlocking, what trauma you are helping them break through, because your compliment on the very thing that you find endearing, it might be something they've been struggling with. It might be the smile that they always thought was ugly, the stride that they thought was uncomely, and you telling them that they have a beautiful smile and a powerful walk might be what it takes to chip away at who they actually are and all of the amazing things that they can accomplish, because you are releasing them from the prison that they're locked in their head because they were placed there with a fake key that somebody held years ago. So be free in complimenting people. You know, it goes a long way. You just never know who you're helping to heal. Fast forward, I've been a part of quite a few podcasts over the years because I genuinely love helping people. And as I would share certain episodes with my friends and family, people would always say, yo, Tam, why don't you start a podcast of your own? And the first thing I thought when people would say that is, I would love to, but remember that blog I quit? Like, I don't really stick to things. And so the last thing I want to do is start something that I might stop. And so for a long time, I would just dismiss the conversation and just say, yeah, I will someday. And in my head, probably not. I would love it if somebody else had a podcast and I was a recurring guest. That's what I would like, because then they're responsible for creating the content and all I'm doing is just piggybacking off of people, which is what honestly I think that I thrive in. So when people are telling me how insightful I am, it's not because I generated a conversation where it says, hey, sweetie, let me just talk to you about something. I just feel this need to tell you X, Y, and Z. And then they're just like, hey, I was really just trying to buy a new bracelet, but thank you for stopping me in the middle of Walmart and pouring 30 minutes of wisdom into my life. That's not what's happening. It's just a conversation that I happened to stumble upon and the discourse was helpful to a person. So in my head, that's not podcast worthy. That's just conversation. Until one day, I just happened to just feel like it's now or never. I can do this. I want to do this. I've heard it enough. And I have a very amazing coworker, shout out to Simone, who told me one day, I don't want to hear another thing until you actually start it. It was episodes that I wanted to do with my daughter. It was different people that I wanted to have come on the show because I really do enjoy conversation and sharing in intimate spaces. And when she told me, just let me know when you're going to start your podcast, okay? I was like, okay, I'll let you know. Let me tell you, a whole year went by without me doing anything. And then other coworkers would chime in. So shout out to Jasmine and Yumika, who were also very impactful with giving me the courage to do this. And for as many times as they would say, you should totally do it, Tam. In my head, I was still scared. And again, I did not want to be stuck with more work to do because I don't feel like I have enough in me for this to be sustainable. But one day, I just happened to be up because I am a morning person. And I was so excited about everything that was just going on in my life. I was excited about my firstborn getting ready to graduate from high school and venture off to college. I was excited about his sister going into her senior year and my baby boy learning how to drive. Like, I just saw my life changing. Also, more responsibilities at work and really just diving into how to map out all of the specifics of the different roles that I've been given with my job, and just excited, just really excited. The thoughts about the podcast were happening. But then at 2:00 one morning, on that Saturday morning, I just went in my closet, set my phone down on the ottoman, and pressed the voice memo and recorded the first episode. Transitions in health. I did it in the morning and I was like, here we go. We did it. And I definitely didn't know what would come of that. It's like, okay, well, it's in my phone, but now I've got to release it to the world. And it was similar thoughts of when I released my blog. I just put it out there. And it was a Facebook post that says, welcome to something blue, to something new. And here's my story. But one of the things that's different this time is this podcast is not a remedy to a story I don't want to tell. It's not coping through a change I didn't want to experience. This is actually me experiencing joy. This is me excited about the transitions going on in my life. This is me embarking upon a journey where I have a lot more say-so in how this goes. I'm not trying to navigate through darkness. I'm actually experiencing a level of light. And in that moment, I said, if you had the courage to release your blog that explains your relationship turmoil, why not release a podcast of how proud you are of your son graduating, of your daughter going into her, you see what I'm saying? Like, this is joy. And there's so much doom and gloom in the world. You releasing joy is good for you. And who knows? It might be good for someone else too. One of the things that came to mind about my blog was that when I did send it out, what was very validating was people who I know and even some strangers would message me and say, hey, I went through the same thing. It normalized the experience of having a very short-lived marriage. And I no longer felt like this huge failure with this very unique story. It was helpful to others to read that they were not the only person going through what they were going through. It was certainly helpful for me to realize that I wasn't the only person going through this. But there was also something about my stories changing over time. Not every blog entry was about the divorce. It was really just the About Me section that was about the divorce. But the rest of it was about time that I'm spending with my children and different travel adventures and just ways that I'm reframing and rephrasing things. And it was really good to hear other people's feedback that was helpful to them. So if one of the more devastating moments in my life gathered an audience, why not bond with people over the good times too? I've grown so much since being that 33-year-old who released her blog. That was almost 10 years ago. And so for where my life is, I felt like the world is deserving of good news. And while not every part of my story is good news, there are clearly things that I'm working through and working toward. Releasing this podcast was a moment of joy for me. It was really good to push something out there in the world at a time where I'm feeling light, where I'm feeling loved, when I'm understanding the power that I do walk in and the impact that I can have. And if for no one else, for me, just to be able to make that distinction that I don't have to be motivated to motivate people because of bad times and bad things. My joys are experiences that are worth telling too. My triumphs are worth sharing as well. And at the end of the day, they're all transitions, whether I am coming off of a mountain or up from a valley, they're transitions nonetheless. But I think it's important that I was able to recognize that this is not me trying to keep people out by referring them to a website where they can read it for themselves. This is actually an opportunity for me to invite people in where we can all hear and heal and grow together. So this time feels really different. This podcast feels very different. And I don't have any goals or expectations on where it lands or what it does. I think I've accomplished the biggest goal, which is releasing love into the world because I feel it. So yes, this time feels different. This podcast feels different. And for however long this difference is rewarding for me, I hope that you'll join in letting me share it with you. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I cannot thank you enough for your love and support. Seriously, it means the world to me. So however you are tuning into this podcast, whether it's Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, maybe you're even watching the video version of this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. That way you'll be alerted every time a new episode drops. So again, I want to say thank you for being such an amazing community. We'll see you next time.